So you'll see here, you'll have a presentation on the screen. We are still discussing the Milestone 2 October release. We went live earlier this month. This is the 4th town hall in the series. My name is Corey Cortez. You'll see our panelists today. We have a special guest, Kathy Leal. She is the Partner Business Executive from SCO. We've also got Yasar Dabor from STO. He's your readiness coordinator. So you're going to be your contact for all STO related questions. And then we have Lynette Andres. She is the SME from SEO. She's going to be walking us through some demos today. And then we've also got Svetlana, and I'm going to butcher her name a little bit, Solovieva. She's going to help out with some of the questions. Computer's not setting me to the next screen. I think we're still having a few technical difficulties. I don't know if this computer can handle that. Okay. Come up with that. You want to come pull them up real quick over here? Is that one not? Mm-hmm. Excellent. Testing? Okay. So we had to do some additional computer switch. Really apologize about the delays, everybody. All right, so agenda today is we wanted to go through quickly some resources available, just another reminder where you can find all the resources for the release. Just some general reminders from STO and STO. And then we've got a video for you and some demo from Lynette. And then, of course, throughout this, we will have questions. So from the resources perspective, when you go to the fiscal.ca.gov website, I wanted to show you, we will have some updates to job aid. So if you go to your job aids, the update isn't yet available, but from the workflow perspective, If you go to the user support, job aids, and you search 391, this is where we'll be updating any workflow changes that SCO has deemed necessary. So this is going to be your document, SCO approval of AR deposits remittances for anything that will workflow to SCO or will not workflow to SCO. The other page I wanted to show you guys as reminders, if you go to resources and then you go to SCO integrated solution, this is where right now we have all of the resources for milestone 2, but we will be having our upcoming milestone 3 resources here as well. You may see some changes to the layout as we work with our team, our website team, to make sure that this page is as organized as it can be. You also see we've got our workshops. Every time we have these webcasts, we've been posting all of the workshop materials there, and we've also got some, these webcasts are for videos. So if you ever want to go back and see the recordings of these, you can go back and check them out if there's something that we asked. We also have an FAQ, which was added earlier this week, kind of outlining some questions that have been asked. We'll try to keep that as updated as possible. So we'll go through some quick STO reminders. STO is still working on a query report. This is the same reminder from last week, listing deposit slips to assist departments' business processes. When that report is completed, STO will reach out to you departments and let you know so that you guys have it and you can use it. And of course, if you still have requests to update beginning deposit slip numbers, you'll want to reach out to Bobby Skinner at rskinner@treasurer.ca.gov. And if you have any requests to use manual deposits, or your department has any requests to use manual deposits, also reach out to Bobby Skinner at rskinner@treasurer.ca.gov. I believe that Yasar has an additional update for the functionality related to deposit slips that he would like to share from STO.
Yes. So for the ZBA deposit type, the Z type that is going to be removed. It's not going to be available to you any longer, and actually for a good reason, because the system will be generating the deposit slip on your behalf, and from that moment on, all you have to do is to complete the transaction is to finish or complete the payment. So the Z, we are working on it. You might still see it for the next couple of days, but that's going to be taken away.
Okay. Thank you, Yasar. So then we've got some SCO payment guidelines reminder. This is information that you'll be able to find in a more graphical note in the updated SCO job aid for workflow 391 that I just mentioned. So I'm not going to go too detailed into it here, and this will be posted online if you want to get back into it. Previously, we discussed some reasons for denial. And at this point, I think that Cassie Leal would provide, or would like to provide, some updates to workflow. These will be updated in the job aid, but she just wants to give you guys some heads up and provide more context to what's happening in SCO.
Good afternoon, everybody. We do have a couple of adjustments to our workflow for those scenarios that do not workflow to SCO. We have updated our workflow to make sure that catch-up transactions do not workflow to SCO. The way they do not workflow is because these catch-up transactions should not be associated to a deposit slip. Because there's no deposit slip, it will not be selected to workflow to SCO. Also, those regular deposits with no deposit slips that have the state bank account or bank account 9999, those will also no longer workflow to SCO. Normally, departments utilize these two bank accounts to record journal entry transactions that were recorded in SCO's legacy system. Also, when you're trying to enter a transaction, whether to correct something in Fiscal, we want you to make sure that you record those transactions utilizing the location of knob. The knob location will prevent anything workflowing to SCO as well as interfacing those transactions to SCO. This location should be used when you're trying to correct a transaction that went to SCO and you want to make some corrections on the fiscal side because SCO fixed the transaction on the SCO legacy side.
Thank you, Kathy. Like I said before, all of these updates, while they're not currently up, Lynette, that you guys can see, is actually working on updating this job aid to incorporate any changes. Some of the things that Kathy had just discussed, like using knob, are actually in the job aid as it is, but we'll just make sure it's up to date with any additional guidance, as well as listing things that won't workflow or specifically not workflowing to SCO. And then you can see here on page 13, there's an example of using the knob location code to prevent things from workflowing through. So we know that departments are having some issues around this subject. We do have some additional materials to help you guys with your catch-up transactions that we'll be showing you as well a little bit later in the session. So you'll see here, for early reclassifications, you can use your knob. So I'm going to take this time to open up some questions.
So we just have 2 questions so far. Question number 1, how to view system-generated accounting entries for SCO solution?
All the system-generated entries will be in GL, posted in GL if you wanted to view them there. You would look at your bank account to see the cash clearing entries out of your CTS bank account fund value, or you would see the entries in your general ledger. We can provide the accounting workbook for the entries that are going to be generated via the system entry if that would help departments.
The next question is, how can we verify if SCO received remittance for the department?
The departments still have access to SCO's legacy system and should also be able to view any journal entries that SCO posted on their behalf. Please continue to review SCO's legacy system for these transactions as well as your agency reconciliation report on a monthly basis, but those transactions are there on a daily basis.
Thank you, Kathy. And then a follow-up question. We have created NOV transactions and they workflowed and were denied. Have workflow issues been corrected? We were told to wait until corrections were made. Is this confirmation that it was corrected? Could you verify, please?
We are also validating with SCO before we release the communication that they have been indeed fixed. The knob location was something that was deployed before these last few fixes, and so there was a defect for those items. So we're waiting to validate with SCO before we release the communication for you guys to continue to process your transactions.
USN 907A, stating that departments should do their deposits, but keep them in the draft state. Do not click the complete checkbox. Lynette will show you exactly what it looks like a little bit later. And from there, when we release the communication, you can go ahead and move forward with those. That's just to prevent rework as we work out some of the issues that departments have been experiencing.
Okay, and then we have a request for clarification that departments no longer need to enter ZBA deposits in the deposit entry screen. Please confirm. Yes. Yes, we are confirming that as correct.
Until we remove it, please refrain from using it because that's going to create duplicate entries. So for now, don't use it until further notice. Thank you.
And Lynette, a question for you. Will there be a separate job aid addressing how to do catch-up transactions accurately in Fiscal?
I think I can actually take that question. Lynette and I are working on some videos, which I'll get into in just a second. We're not completed with those videos. We should have the rest of the videos ready for the departments on Friday, and we'll be uploading them to our resources page as they're ready. but we wanted to make sure we can clearly walk you through what the steps were. So I can actually get started on that if there are no more questions.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so here is just a reminder of two different types of catch-up transactions. We'll leave that here for you later, but what I wanted to get into is a chart that we have available. So this chart shows you kind of what the different scenarios are for the 4 types of catch-up transactions. So everybody is aware of what a catch-up transaction is. It is something where you'll see in this first column where you have done your deposit in EDF without doing your deposit in EFITS, or you haven't created a fiscal deposit, or without fiscal payments. So in the first case, this would be for where a department has done their EDF deposit but has not done any EFITS, which has gone away, so we wouldn't expect them to do, but needs to still do a fiscal deposit. The reason this can be an issue is because we have our new deposit slip functionality, so it requires a few extra steps to complete the things that are not done with the deposit slip functionality. And so we'll have some additional videos coming soon for the scenarios where you have done an EDF deposit and then an EFITS remittance, but you never entered anything into fiscal, and you'd want to show we're going to show you how to catch up. We're actually going to do that demonstration today for you, but we'll have a video later this week. And then we have some more rare circumstances where you haven't done the EFITS, but you recorded something in fiscal already. And so in that case, we'll also need to make sure that we've got the interface working into SCO Legacy correctly. So we'll go ahead and take a minute now to watch the video that we're creating, and will be available on the fiscal website for you. So it's going to give that a second to load up. There we go. And fiscal is using YouTube for some of this information. I heard there might be some sound issues, so we're going to go ahead and get that sorted out very quickly. Okay. All right, hopefully this sounds okay for you guys, but we'll go ahead and go through the video.
My name is Lynette Andres from the Provost Office, and I'm here to demonstrate and to record catch-up deposits and to apply the payments that have not been remitted via EFITS but have been deposited via EDF right over.
Yeah, you see the cool thing about the YouTube videos is you can adjust the speed to make sure you can get through it in a speed that seems right to you. For this initial catch-up transaction video, it comes in as 10 minutes because Lynette is giving a lot of context. To do these transactions, we expect them to be done much faster than that. I think once you get proficient in doing one, you can probably do it in 1 or 2 minutes. But we're going to go through it as if Lynette is here live giving you the demonstration.
For catch-up deposits, you have to create your deposit in fiscal for this EDF amount prior to cut over by doing it on the regular deposit page. First, we'll go to the regular deposit page by following that breadcrumb. I will do it for deposit B5175. I will use yesterday's date because I will need today's date for step 2. Bank code will be state. For bank account, you will have to use your bank checking account number. Deposit type is R. Bank deposit number is also the deposit slip number. You can enter deposit slip number that here you will enter the amount of one count related to this deposit. Count is how many payments is linked to that particular deposit. Okay, we'll go to the Payments tab to enter the payment information. This is a free form field that you can use for your business process. I use journal directly because this is not, I'm pretending this is not related to any AR item. Now click on apply payment. I will click this to collapse so I can see all the charts. I'll enter my line amount. Now we use the CPS fund. It's 9 digits. I'll enter 2018. Now we use account 100 for collections. So here I'm recording my deposit. Do not use the deposit slip in this case.
Okay. Okay. So we heard that there were some departments having problems hearing. The video on YouTube, when it works through, should be fine for you guys. We'll get that out to you as soon as we can. For now, what we're going to do is have Lynette actually go through the demonstration live. So just as a reference, we're looking at a scenario where the first catch-up scenario, and Lynette's going to go through this pretty fast. So she's not going to give as much context because we'll have the video available after. And then she'll show you just the first two examples where you've done an EDF, you haven't done the EFITS or anything in Fiscal yet. And then the second example she's going to show you is where you've done EDF and EFITS, but you haven't done Fiscal yet. All right, so Lynette, give to you.
Thank you, Corey. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Like Corey has mentioned, what I'm going to do is to record catch-up deposits and to apply payments that have not been remitted via EFITS but are already recorded in the EDF. First, to go to accounts receivable, payments, online payments, regular deposit. Do not use the deposit slip entry page as it will create a duplication of entries. I will use BU 5175 as our guinea pig. Then let me just do back date of the date because we're going to adjust it later. The bank code is state. Like I said, if you don't hear me talking, that means I'm trying to do this as much as possible so you'll know the exact length of time that you will do this. This is pretty much easy, especially when you're already proficient. Go to the Payments tab and enter your payment information. Once you save it, it'll give you the deposit ID. Make sure that you take note of the deposit ID because you will use it later.
So deposit ID is 6134. and the amount that is being fixed is $3.
What I'm doing right now for step one is to catch up deposit. I'm creating an AR deposit in fiscal for the EDF amount prior to cutover. After the EDF is posted to the uncleared collection, right now I'll be using uncleared collection because this is a testing environment. The only account that's set up for this is the uncleared collection. I'm entering the CTS fund. My enactment year is 2018. The account that I will use, like I said, since this is the only thing that's available right now, is the uncleared collections account for testing purposes. I'll save it. I'll click on the lightning bolt here to create my cash accounting entries. This is where Corey was telling us about when preparing, if you're not sure whether this will workflow and if the SEO communication is not out there yet to update the job aid for some of the defects or some of the code configuration code fix that we're doing, you can prepare your transactions ahead of time like this, but do not click on the complete checkbox here, okay? And that way, you're preparing, you're saving time, and then when it's ready, when the implementation is ready, code fix is ready, you can just check on that complete box and continue your process. For this purpose, since this is testing, I am clicking the complete checkbox in order to complete my transaction. The email address is pre-populated, but the phone number is not. So you have to enter your phone number here. And click on certify. This page is to certify that what you're doing, your transaction is actually in compliance with the legal authority that you're citing. Okay. So then we created a catch-up deposit. Now what we'll do for step 2 is to create or apply the payments that have not been remitted via EFITS. What you will do is you'll go to the same page, just follow the breadcrumbs and add a new value, type in your deposit ID, deposit unit. And then what you'll do here is you will create a $0 deposit using the regular deposit page after the cutover. Go use bank account, your checking account, because now you're moving the money from your CTS fund into your state fund credit revenue. I'm using revenue here. You'll have to put the bank deposit number that you entered earlier from your first transaction, which I did not enter. So make sure you remember to enter here, okay? Legacy deposit ID. That's actually in this case, you're doing catch up, that will be your EDF deposit slip. So like I said, you're doing $0, so leave the amount 0. I'm creating 2 payments that's related to this transaction. One is a reversal of the original transaction, the original deposit that I created earlier. And the second one will be the correcting it to the state fund. Go to your payments tab and enter your original payment ID with an _R. The reason why we're using _R is because we're reversing the original deposit transaction that we created earlier. And I'm entering a credit. Now I will have to enter or create another payment line for my payment sequence 2 to reflect my correction entry to the state fund. Scroll down. And then this one will be an _C for correction. This will be my positive, so it zeroes out. And then click on journal directly because this is not an item-related transaction. You don't have accounts receivable item here to link. Okay, so your deposit ID, by the way, is 6135 for this one. Take note of that. And then now I am ready to apply the payment. Applying the payment will be for each payment sequence. So let me first apply the payment for payment sequence 1, where I'm taking out the money from the CTS fund. And I am reversing the exact entry that I created from my first deposit earlier. I'll click the lightning bolt for my cash accounting entries. Save it. Click complete. Complete my process. It says deposit is not routed for approval. Since we're doing $0 deposit, for this one, this is routed for, it's asking to be routed for approval, but I do believe that there is a code fix for this that we're working on. This may change, but like I said, like Corey has mentioned earlier, the job aid will be updated as needed. That will be your living document. Type of transaction.
Kathy, here's a question for you. Because these are catch-up transactions, do departments need to add anything into these fields?
This, my understanding, this is not a catch-up transaction, right? This is the first example was a catch-up deposit, but they hadn't done EFIS and they hadn't recorded in Fiscal. So in this case, for this example, yes, they would need to populate the information as to remittance to the state controller. The state controller is defining all of those legal authorities or reasons, and they will publish that information soon as to what's appropriate when you are trying to remit from your CTS bank account over to a state fund.
Thanks, Kathy. And I think that we're planning on using the Job Aid 391 as just a place for people to look for that information. It will also be communicated in text directly, but that way it's just a place for people to know they can always go back to. You'll see for now, Lynette is just entering some extra information here, including that type of transaction is a catch-up payment for an EDF deposit. And she's also got in her reason for deposit that it was deposited in the EDF but not remitted in EFITS. And then she's giving you the original payment that she did the reversal of, the first payment, 6134, that I noted earlier, and then also today's date. And so below you'll see that she's just saying this is a revenue correction. We do recommend that you copy and paste these into a notepad because it makes it easier. You don't have to write it once.
That's correct.
Especially if you're doing a lot of these.
This first entry here for legal authority and reason for request will actually be inherited on the next payment sequence. But the notes to approver will not be inherited. Okay. We are still working with the controller's office for the exact language that they will require the departments to put for most remittances. We already have guidelines for reversing for TC35 and TC38. However, we still need to make sure that you will know what to enter on the legal authority and reason for request for these types of transactions. And we will update the job aid later as needed. So now I'll have to click on certify. And like I said, you'll have to enter this, certify it for every transaction, every payment sequence.
I did hear that the fiscal team was looking into ways to auto-populate the email address and phone number. Email address is already populated from your profile, but I believe the phone number, they're looking at how they can do that as well to make it easier for everybody. You will always have to click the I certify checkbox.
I'm now populating, entering the information for my payment sequence too. This time, I'm moving it to my state fund. So click general fund, and enter general fund, and account will be my revenue. Click save. And click on lighting bulb for my cash accounting entries. And click complete. We suggest that before submitting for approval, to complete your payment sequences first, so that your transaction is complete before you submit it for SCO to approve, so they won't get confused. So like I said, it inherited the legal authority and reason for request for the payment sequence number 2. I'm canceling. I need to type the type of transaction, because it did not inherit. And click certify. So now it's saved. I can now submit it for approval. And like I said, because of the testing that we've been doing and code fix, this is no longer sent for approval. $0 deposit is fixed to not send for approval. So now you can just go ahead and do a budget check. Click on the budget check icon, and we'll wait till the budget status is valid for this one. After this,
So we do have some questions about, you saw that screen there, that this transaction didn't remit or go to approval because it's from a CTS fund to a state fund.
that is correct.
I think Kathy has just some more to say about what's workflowing.
Sure.
So although this transaction is not workflowing because the account is a 4-series revenue, that does not mean that all transactions moving money from a CTS fund to a state fund will not workflow. That does not mean that. It does mean that in some cases, if you do pick the wrong account code, it will workflow to SCO because that transaction is incorrect or invalid. And SCO will review those transactions to make sure that what we're posting in Fiscal equates to what is being posted in SCO's legacy system.
That is correct. Oh.
And can you also clarify, why are we using the uncleared collection account? Is it because this is after 10/12?
Okay.
Thank you for that question. Good question. So we did go live with using the uncleared collection as our balancing entry for our cash clearing entries. As of yesterday, we have updated that configuration to be the new unapplied receipts account. However, we were able to backdate that that configuration change to Friday, October 12th. A new communication will be released instructing departments what they need to do for those deposits made between October 8th through October 11th. Any deposits made on the 12th and going forward will have the new cash clearing entries that utilize the unapplied receipts account.
Thank you, Kathy. Actually, yes. For testing purposes, I showed uncleared collection because we don't have unapplied receipts also in this environment. Okay. In addition to what Kathy was saying, she's correct that some transactions crediting the revenue, and I'm coming from a CTS fund, will still workflow, especially the ones with abnormal entries, like if you're debiting revenue, you're crediting an expense, you're crediting an asset, will still workflow to SCO for approval.
Okay, thank you, Lynette. And so that was the very first scenario of doing a catch-up transaction. We know there's a lot of questions now. Lynette was able to go through that quickly. We will show you another demo for the second scenario, but I wanted to just spend, maybe 10 or 15 minutes just going through some questions before we show that scenario.
Alrighty. We have quite a bit. I'm going to start going back to the Z. Will removing the deposit type Z affect the AR018 contingency departments who may continue using it in the AR regular deposit page until they are on board before the next milestone release? Yes, of course. Will removing the deposit type Z affect the AR018 contingency departments who may continue using it in the AR regular deposit page until they are on board before the next milestone release? Okay. We will take it away and answer later. Is the deposit ID going to be updated to match the deposit slip number? Also, does the deposit ID contain the CTS account number similar to deposit slip number?
Yes, so the deposit ID does contain the CTS account number. It's the next three. The first number is indicates the type of deposit it is, whether it's manual or standard. That would be number 1, and then the next 3 digits would be the CTS account number. What was the second part of the question? Yes, that we answered, so we confirmed that.
So I wanted to clarify that there's 2 deposit IDs in Fiscal. One is the deposit slip number. That will contain the CTS account number, whereas the regular deposit ID, which is in AR, does not contain it. When you create a deposit slip, it automatically links the deposit slip number with the deposit ID in Fiscal, so it'll link those two. And the cases that Lynette just went through, it doesn't do that because these were deposited in EDF prior to Fiscal going live with this new functionality. So the deposit ID will continue. It's the best practice of using the next. So that way it's the next sequential ID in the system. But that will not contain the CTS number. And if you are doing this, you'll need to make sure, like Lynette showed, to link your deposit slip number from EDF in with the deposit ID.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah and Corey. Do departments have to finish the payments portion for deposit type Z? So I think this was in reference to since ZBA deposits are leaving, if there are some that still have open payments, how do they go about?
If you have entered that information already, double check to ensure that most likely a duplicate entry have been created, and we need to open a ticket with the FSC. So please do send a ticket to that effect, and we'll take care of that from our end.
Thank you. Deposit slip type M created a deposit ID. How do we find the deposit? Yeah. Do we need clarification on this question?
So when you create your deposit slip manually, then with the manual type, a deposit ID will be created. And if you're trying to find the ones that you link, I believe that STO is working on a report to help you with this. But I think there is a way for you to do a search in Fiscal. I think we'll have to take the rest of the question back, though.
Do we still submit the CA 504 transaction request form for corrections? How about submitting the monthly PFAs?
The 504 transaction request, Lynette, is that the TC30 or?
The transaction request form?
That's the regular transaction.
The regular transaction.
So the regular transaction request form for corrections, If you're doing a direct journal payment correction, you can utilize Fiscal to record that transaction. However, if you're doing a correction for receipts collected for AR bills or AR items, you will have to submit a paper transaction request, the CA 504, for those types of transactions.
Thank you.
Sorry, I missed the second part. For the PFA transaction request, yes, you will continue to submit a paper transaction request. The functionality for a PFA transaction request is slated for March 30th of 2019.
Thank you, Kathy. We have a couple questions. In reference to the Fiscal CMO sent, so in reference to Task Business 907A sent on Monday, October 15th, regarding delay sending AR payments to SCO for approval, does this apply to ARO, APO, and APC?
It does not apply to your AR, your payroll ARs. Payroll ARs should be entered in Fiscal utilizing the regular deposit with no deposit slip and state bank account 0000. These will not workflow to SCO, and they will not post in SCO's legacy system, as we've already received those transactions from our personnel and payroll division.
And another question about Business 907. When will we be able to complete the remittance and click the complete box?
We are targeting by Friday for SCO to be able to validate that these transactions are no longer workflowing to them and no longer in danger of interfacing to SCO for posting at SCO's legacy system, since that will create a different problem for departments. So we're targeting Friday of this week, October 19th, for that date.
Thank you. What is the accounting date to use for all catch-up transactions? All my deposits are from July 1st to the present.
I can answer that question. You should record your deposits with the date that you actually made the deposit in your system. If you are creating a catch-up deposit, remember, you are not creating a deposit slip, regular deposit. You're creating just a regular deposit. It will prevent a new deposit slip from being created and flowing to the STO and the SEO for saying new money is coming. So again, create a regular deposit with the date that you actually took the money to the bank in the Fiscal system, and do not tie those to a deposit slip.
Thank you. For all catch-up transactions, do we have to do the two steps, post to CTS fund first, then moving from CTS fund to revenue later?
The two-step process is only one area. If you have already recorded the deposit slip in Fiscal, then, the deposit in Fiscal and remitted to EDF already, then all you need to do is a $0 deposit to send the money to the SCO. The only type of transactions that will flow to SCO from a deposit are those that are associated with a deposit slip. Since these deposits were made prior to the milestone to go live, those deposits, if you apply payments, are not selected to go to SCO for application of the remittance. So you will just need to create, in those cases, $0 deposits to move the money from the CTS fund over to the state fund, and you should be utilizing your unapplied receipts per the instructions submitted last week of reapplying your deposit from unclear collections to unapplied receipts.
And like I mentioned earlier, we are releasing a video on each of the different scenarios. Once you identify what scenario your catch-up deposit uses, there is a different set of steps. So depending on the scenario, you may have to do that original deposit and then move the money over from unapplied receipts, in this case, to your revenue or whatever accounts that you're using. It's just that was one scenario, and that is going to show another scenario that Kathy just talked through as a demonstration, and we'll have videos available for you, all of your departments, so that way you can select which scenario really applies to you.
We created $0 deposits to reverse from uncleared collection account in order to create an entry to remit. These transactions seem to be on hold. Can you share what is going on with these transactions?
If you created a TC47 type of transaction doing a $0 deposit from your uncleared collections and CTS fund to a state fund, those transactions should be flowing to SCO right now. They should not be on hold at all, and they should continue to post. So if you have an issue, then you should create an FSC ticket with that issue. Those should continue to flow to SCO on a normal basis right now. There were a few questions in regards to the unapplied receipts. The unapplied receipts was available for selection in Fiscal starting last week. However, we did not set up the configuration to utilize this account in our cash clearing entries. That has been fixed as of 10/12. All deposits, when they're created, the entry will be debit to general cash under your CTS fund, credit to unapplied receipts in your CTS fund. For those transactions in between from October 8th through October 11th, that cash clearing entry was to uncleared collections instead of the unapplied receipts. We have asked the department to, if you have not applied your money yet, right, to a state fund or the true uncleared collections account, that you reverse those uncleared collections accounts and move them to your unapplied receipts account until you determine what state fund or if it's true uncleared collections with your departmental specific alternate accounts if you have those. And this account will be used going forward. There is no chance for change at this point in time, and there is no, we haven't decided if we're going to change that again, and that'll probably be the account that's utilized for the remainder of the Fiscal system, which is approximately, 30 to 40 years. Just kidding, that was a joke.
Okay, so to clarify, yes, the unapplied receipts account is permanent. We were using the same payment ID for uncleared collections and later reclassifying them to revenues. If we do a $0 deposit, can we use that common payment ID as reference?
Yes.
The answer is yes. My payroll ARs are going to the SEO workflow. You stated that they don't. Can you clarify?
Depending on the payroll AR that you create, the payroll ARs as in the collection or payroll ARs as in what is SCO's PPSD creating a payroll AR on your behalf.
Once we receive clarification to that question, we'll be able to answer it further. Do we want to continue with the demo and then come back to the rest of the questions? A lot. Okay. Does deposit type R for catch-up entries apply to credit card payments in lieu of deposit type Z?
So for credit card deposits, all those going to be ZBAs, but the system will generate the deposit slips on your behalf, and you don't have to use anything to account for them. Once the system creates the deposit slip, you just need to complete that transaction by completing the payment.
We're not aware of catch transactions being required for ZBA transactions, so I don't think you need to do anything there. But I think Yassar is going to follow up with STO and give a more conclusive answer. But for now, let's go under the guise that there are no catch-up transactions for ZBA transactions.
Okay. More questions on uncleared collections. We were informed to zero out uncleared collections and that all incomplete payments must be recorded to the unapplied receipts account. However, it was also stated that the 2090050 needed to be zeroed out. What if we didn't zero out 290050?
The uncleared collections account should be zeroed out for those transactions recorded between October 8th to October 11th. And anything else in those balances should be real balances that you have applied to uncleared collections as you're doing further research. But the zeroing out is only for those entries that were recorded between October 8th through October 11th of last week. Unapplied receipts is a pass-through account where we will bring in the money to your CTS. The other side of the entry is unapplied receipts. Once you've determined if the money belongs to a state fund, we would request you to remit that money to that state fund. However, if you receive money and you truly don't know where it's going and you need some more time to research, you should apply those unapplied receipt money to your true uncleared collections account until that time that you figure out where that money goes. Unapplied receipts, although should be zeroed out on a regular basis, we know that it does take some time for departments to bring in the deposits and apply the payments. And that currently the business process and the policy is to do that on a weekly basis. So we know that there will be a balance in there, but that balance should not grow in time, while it should only have a week's worth of deposits in there, I would say, because you need to remit that money either to a state fund or to your true uncleared collection.
Final question. Kathy, can you please confirm the coding for catch-up process? Is it to uncleared collections or is it to unapplied receipts?
Your catch-up transactions, what was it? So to the catch-up transactions that have been recorded in the system went to uncleared collections. Your new catch-up transactions, the system will generate that to unapplied receipts. If you determine they're correct uncleared collections, then you should remit your unapplied receipts to your true uncleared collections account with whatever alternate account that you have. Any uncleared collections prior to the M2 go live should be true uncleared collections, and unless you know where that money goes, you shouldn't be moving those to unapplied receipts. Again, the cleanup is only for October 8th through October 11th. Any prior balance in uncleared collections is true uncleared collections, and you should leave it there until you determine what state fund to remit it to, or return it back to the person that paid you that money because it doesn't belong to you. But again, so the cleanup is only from October 8th through October 11th, and going from October 12th onward, the cash clearing entry will be unapplied receipts, and you will use that in your $0 deposits when you're clearing out your unapplied receipts and moving that money to your state funds or your CTS uncleared collections. There was another question in there, if this account should only be used with CTS funds. Yes, that is a correct statement. This account should only be used with your CTS fund. It is not your uncleared collections. You should not have any alternate accounts with this. This is a system-generated entry, and the only time you'll need to key it into your transaction is when you're doing a $0 deposit. Other than that, it should not be utilized with a state fund. And we will be entering a combo edit to prevent this type of transaction.
Thank you. I think we're good for now.
Okay, to resume our demo. Okay, what I will show you now is how to apply payments or catch-up payments that have already been remitted via IFITs, sorry. So what I did for this particular transaction, I actually staged the data already. This deposit is actually the catch-up deposit. So that's your step one. You record the catch-up deposits to your uncleared collection, to your state fund, to your CTS fund, And then because of limitations, we're using a testing environment. The only thing available is your uncleared collection, like I said. So I pre-populated this with the accounting date, the bank account, 262, and the deposit slip number. This is actually where you'll put the deposit slip number from your original deposit. Okay? And then I entered the amount and the count for this catch-up deposit. And then the payment ID, I click on journal directly and the amount. And I use the counting date, October 16th. Okay? So now I saved it, and now I'm ready to apply the payment. So I follow the same step that I did for step 1 for scenario number 1 earlier. And now I'll just apply the payment. So this saves time. I'm entering the CTS fund for this one, for my catch-up deposit. I'm using my uncleared collection because the unapplied receipt's not available yet. Click Save. Click on the lightning bolt for my cash accounting entries. Save it. I check the complete checkbox to finish my process here. I'll enter the email address is pre-populated. Click on Certify. Okay. This one will not route for approval, so I'll just budget check. And I'll wait till it's valid. The budget status is valid. Okay, now the budget status is valid. My next step is to create the payments in the regular deposit page after cutover using the deposit type R. And like I said, don't use the deposit slip entry page to create this, as you do not want to duplicate the entries. I'll type in the deposit ID that I created earlier, 6132. I'm sorry. It'll be on the regular deposit page, sorry, to add a new value. Okay. Sorry, we're adding a new value to create a payment for the regular deposit page. I click on Create Accounting Entries, my bad. So bank code will be state, bank account. For this one will be your checking account. Deposit type will be R. And I will enter the deposit slip number that I created, that I entered for my deposit ID 6132 for my catch-up deposit earlier, to link, here, to link my deposit slip to my deposit ID. This won't be a $0 deposit, but this will be a regular positive amount deposit, because I am now remitting it to my state fund in the fiscal entry page in AR, because I already remitted via EFITS. So I need to capture it and record it in fiscal. I'll click on journal directly, since this is not related to any AR item. I'll click Save. If you notice, I have a new deposit ID. And I'll log that. Take note of that. Now I will apply the payment in order to apply it to my state fund. I'll use my general fund, apply it to revenue 4110200 and save it. I'll click on the lightning bolt to generate my cash accounting entries. Save it. Click complete. See, without me talking, this is actually easy for you. This will be quick. So enter phone number, and like I said, for every payment sequence, you have to certify that you're doing this under penalty of perjury. Save it. Okay. Since it did not route me for approval, because I'm just moving the money from a CTS fund to my state fund, and I am crediting my revenue, which is a normal transaction, a normal balance, a normal sign for revenue is a credit, so it did not route me for approval. I will just click the budget check icon and wait for the budget status to show as valid. And once it's valid, you're done. That easy. Thank you.
As you guys can see, that there are multiple scenarios for a catch-up deposit or transaction. In that case, depending on the type of catch-up you're doing, it will be slightly different. We'll try to get these videos up as soon as we can. There's also, just a quick, before we go back into questions, we're doing our best to answer every question. If for some reason we don't answer your question today, I would recommend that you contact the Fiscal Service Center and ask them. They'll be able to get back to you as soon as we can. It's just another way to get to our SMEs in a way that we can manage all the questions effectively. We're doing our best, but there's a lot more. I think there's about 400 to 500 people watching, and you can just think of the amount of questions we get. So if we can't get to yours, it's not because we're ignoring you. We're just doing our best over here. And so we're going to go ahead and have, like I said, keep checking the resources page, the SCO integration page for the videos as they come up. We'll potentially send you guys a communication, although I think your best bet is going to be to just keep checking, later this week or Monday, especially if you're one of the people who will actually do the catch-up transactions, just to go on there and see if you need help with it. They might seem a little bit longer, but that's just Lynette going to go through and give you more details, especially if you found it hard to follow here. She'll do her best to make sure you understand why she's doing everything, so that way you can go ahead and make any updates to it that you need to for your own department's business process. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Svetlana for more questions.
Okay, just real quick, I wanted to answer this question. Kathy, what you said was really helpful, and so people are asking if this will be written down in a job aid or if there's a WebEx recording. This WebEx recording will be posted on the SCO Integrated Solutions page that Corey illustrated earlier, and as are all the previous town halls, so please go there. And yes, and there's also an FAQ where we sourced a lot of your questions and answered the most frequently asked ones. So yeah, and all of that is on our SCO Integrated Solutions page. Okay, now more questions. Who should we contact if we notice an account used in a deposit that was created by SCO or others and that account is wrong? The Fiscal Service Center. Okay, we had a similar question earlier on how do we correct if we remit on behalf of the wrong agency? Will they also contact the Fiscal Service Center?
If you remitted to the wrong business unit, you would need to submit a correction using a $0 deposit, TC 38 correction, that will workflow to SCO's Bureau of Accounting and Consulting. They will review that transaction, and then if appropriate, they will go ahead and approve it, and it will interface to SCO's legacy system and post to correct that previous transaction. So we got some more information back on that payroll accounting, accounts receivable. It was a collection. So when you are entering payroll AR collections, you will want to use a regular deposit with no deposit slip, utilizing the state bank account 0000. This means that it will not workflow to SCO and it will not interface to SCO because SCO has already recorded that transaction in their legacy system. So when you create that regular deposit, you go to the payments page. If it's associated with the AR, which it is, you apply it to the AR and you're done. You don't have to do anything more. Now it's recorded in Fiscal and it had already been recorded in SCO's legacy system. Food for knowledge, during milestone 4, milestone 3 release 4, which goes live March 30th of 2019, we will actually be bringing in all payroll AR collections that SCO has collected on behalf of the department, and we will be applying them to your open ARs, so you will no longer have to do these recordings in Fiscal.
Thank you, Kathy. Can you please explain how credit cards will be entered? Do we have to apply our payments to the credit card deposit ID generated from Fiscal, and how do we locate that number? How are they identified if we have credit card payments for multiple services?
Again, with the credit cards, for all the charges of the credit cards, the Fiscal will create a deposit on your behalf, and to complete the transaction, all is needed is to complete the payment. If you have probably more back-end questions, more detailed, you'd like to know what's happening behind the scene, please send us an email or to FSC, and we will make sure that our SMEs get back to you on that.
Thank you. We had.
So as you saw stated, those AR deposits are automatically created from the ZBA accounts if you're a Big 5 department. This isn't a common transactions for most departments. And I think that while they're attempting to remove the Z from the deposit slip entry page, I think you'll still be able to search by deposit type Z and find the Fiscal generated ZBA accounts. So that way, I think that's something that Jeffrey Chu had mentioned in the last meeting. But if you have more questions around this, please reach out to either the FSC or you can, I think that the FSC would be the better place if you're one of the Big 5, you need more help understanding your process, and then STO will get back to you individually to make sure that your department knows how to process those transactions correctly.
We were under the impression that for all collections and to apply payments for catch-up transactions, we were to use bank code 0000 and not the 3-digit code. Can you explain what type of scenario bank code 000 is used? So I believe this was asked during one of your demonstrations. And then there's this question that's very similar. How are we supposed to apply unknown payments to unclear collections? We were told to use bank code 0000 for payments, and we didn't want remitted. Since SCO went live, we are applying payments to the deposit ID generated, which has a 3-digit bank code.
So when you're recording catch-up transactions, the first question you have to ask yourself is, where is my money currently sitting? Is it sitting in my bank account, which is your CTS bank account, or is it sitting in a state fund? So if it's sitting in your bank account, you need to apply your CTS bank account. If it's sitting in your state fund, then you utilize the state bank account, which is the 0000. I hope that answer helps. And then from there, then you move it to, if you still don't know where the money goes, then you would apply it to true unclear collections. Or if you figure out where the money is supposed to go, then you remit it to a state fund. But first ask yourself, where is your money sitting when you're trying to enter the catch-up transaction in Fiscal?
Are there known issues with Fiscal reports displaying balances in the unapplied receipt account?
At this moment in time, we are unaware of any issues. So if this is truly an issue, please create a Fiscal Service Center ticket so we can review those reports to make sure there is no inaccuracies.
Our department will have to do manual deposit slip on a regular basis. How will this affect month-end closing? Once you close your month-end jail closing, will you be able to back end the manual deposit slip?
So once you do your manual deposit and you enter them into the system, Fiscal will be accounting for all these deposits, and all the information will be available for your month end.
It sounds like when you have your manual deposit, you send those to your HQ, or if you're one of the approved departments, to STO, and then from there they'll enter it into Fiscal, create your deposit ID, not your deposit slip number, but your regular deposit ID. And then from there, your department will need to enter the accounting information for it, doing a normal transaction. And from once they do the normal transaction, that should be able to, as long as you're doing that timely, I think Kathy mentioned earlier, department should be doing that every week, then your months should close and your year should close correctly.
So we did reiterate actually this announcement in various sessions. So STO, since go live since October 8th, will not be entering this information on behalf of satellites or those small organizations that don't have access to the internet. They do have a grace period just for 30 days after go live. But after that, each of the satellite organizations need to have an arrangement with the headquarters or their main office and have them enter this information on your behalf. And as just to reiterate, more often you do it, the more accurate information you will have in your system.
Can you show on your notepad the suggested notes we should input on our deposits again, please?
Sure. Like I said, we're still working with the State Controller's Office for the exact language that they would want the departments to enter. In the meantime, I suggest, or we advise, that you enter as much information as possible for SEO to determine what you're trying to do, like catch-up. If it's a catch-up deposit, catch-up payments, include the EDF number, deposit slip ID, related to it, the deposit ID that's related to your $0, and refer to the date that the deposit was created and the payments were originally remitted in EFITs and all that. We are actually utilizing this REV and CORR, $, from what's required when you're doing a TC35, TC38 correction. This may change. However, this is what I can come up with to be required by the State Controller's Office. But like I said, the job aid will be updated. There will be a communication to go out for the remaining guidelines that SCO will require of you to enter.
So Lynette is updating the job aid Fiscal 391. So if you go to the Fiscal website, when Lynette has worked with SCO home staff in their accounting division to make sure that the language is what they're looking for. I know that SCO at home is analyzing some of the deposits to make sure that departments have correct guidelines. You can use what Lynette put here for now, but in the future we'd want to reference the job aid Fiscal 391. We will notify departments when it's been updated.
You can even use the attachment link to attach some supporting documentations that you may have. Thank you.
Alrighty, one more time. How can we fix the transactions that are entered in the unapplied receipt and state fund?
If they have already been posted at SCO, you'll just have to do a $0 deposit, correcting it between the state fund to, from that state fund and that unapplied receipts to the correct transaction lines on the $0 deposit. That should be under the state bank account 0000 with a location of knob that will prevent it from going to SCO again to post if they've corrected it on their side.
All the deposits are under uncleared collections. When we do catch up to IFITs, do we do the positive deposit and direct journal to the fund we remitted to?
All deposits beginning October 8th were under the uncleared collections. If it's a deposit slip and you know the state fund that it should be remitted to, you can remit everything you know for those deposits to the state fund to SCO. Any balance within those deposits that you don't know, you should apply those to the unapplied receipts. Only that difference that you do not know. The rest of it can be applied to the state fund, revenue, abatement, reimbursement. The remaining balance that you are unaware of, apply that to your unapplied receipts.
Thank you, Kathy. Question, will this release also record the payroll AR?
Milestone 3 Release 4 will not record the payroll AR. However, there is a feature, as Fiscal calls them, to actually do that interface as well for the departments. But that interface is a little bit more complex as departments do different types of things. So there will be a work group with specific departments to come in to make sure that that functionality, when it is built, but not tied to SCO release, to make sure that we build the right solution for departments. Until then, you'll have to continue to create ARs manually in Fiscal for payroll.
Okay, thank you. Another clarification question, $0 deposit, is it required for all reclassing of uncleared collections to revenue?
If you created, so the only time you have to do a $0 deposit if these are your transactions that you have not remitted via EFIT. So anything after October 8th, if you haven't applied the payments yet, you can apply those payments to your state fund. Again, so $0 deposit is if you close out your deposit to unapplied receipts, as you're instructed to do, then you would do a $0 deposit because those deposits are no longer open. As long as the deposit remains open, you can apply those payments to the state fund directly within that deposit.
Thank you. And then Lynette, this is a follow-up question for you. On the second example, why did you create the first deposit using an uncleared collections account? What are you trying to do with this transaction / regular deposit, and how would it be cleared if you did not do a $0 on the second transaction?
Okay. For that scenario, we are applying payments that have already been remitted via EFITs, and therefore also recorded in EDF. So we recorded them in legacy. So we need to record them and capture them in Fiscal. So the first step there to record catch-up deposit is for the deposit to be recorded in Fiscal. And the second positive payment, that's why I did not do a $0, is a positive regular deposit page to capture the payment in Fiscal. So this will actually not interface and workflow to SCO, and will not interface to legacy because the payment's already been applied in EFITS.
And the reason that Lynette used the unclear collections account is because, as she stated earlier, the test environment that she is utilizing has not updated the configuration to the new unapplied receipts account.
You got it.
Thank you for that clarification, Kathy and Lynette. And last question, when creating a regular deposit for a deposit slip created 2 days ago, can we use the accounting date of the deposit slip? Back date in parentheses.
When you're creating a deposit slip, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it systematically creates your regular deposit. So if you created your deposit slip 2 days ago, you have a regular deposit created already for you in the system 2 days ago. So then you just need to go apply payments to that deposit. But the new functionality is when I create a deposit slip, I will also be creating a regular deposit, and that's created via the system.
Thank you, Kathy. And then we also had a suggestion come in. Can people please submit their questions ahead of time for the next town hall WebEx so they can be answered? There seems to be a lot of questions unanswered. Do our panelists want to comment?
People are always free to submit questions to the Fiscal Service Center or to the Fiscal CMO. We'll do our best to make sure we can answer any of your questions. So if you do have any questions, you are definitely free to submit ahead of time at any time. The questions from the live sessions are nice because we can get that interaction. We saw it a little bit earlier with the AROs, and where we're able to get some additional clarification for the question. And this is also your chance to get communication with, it's not often that we're able to speak directly with the partner business executive, Kathy Leal, here from SCO. But we always, for every question sent into the Fiscal Service Center, a ticket is opened and those tickets are addressed. So to make sure that your questions are answered, that is our recommendation.
Thank you, panelists. That will be all for questions.
Okay. So you guys can see here, this is the chart of catch-up scenarios we talked through earlier. Today, we tried to show you the video, but the video will be available on our portal. Lynette did a demonstration of the first one and then the second one. These other two scenarios where you've already done your fiscal deposit but not your EFITS or your payment, and then you've already done your EDF and your fiscal deposit payment, but you haven't remitted it in EFITS. We'll have to do, you'll get detailed videos for those at a later time. These different scenarios will depend on what you've already done. We know that some departments, there are a few departments that have quite a bit large volume of these catch-up scenarios, so depending on what type it is, you'll have to just do a few different steps. And we know we got quite a few questions about the differences between the two and why Lynette was doing certain things for perhaps this one where you haven't already done your EFITS, and so you're just doing them directly in the Fiscal, versus the second scenario where you did do your EDF and EFITS, but you haven't recorded anything in your Fiscal, and you need to record that, so that way your month-end close or your year-end close will be correct. So look for those. We'll try to get those updated as soon as we can. We've gone through the demo with Lynette. Thank you, Lynette. If you have any additional questions, like I said before, you're free to call the Fiscal Service Center, or you can send an email to them. You can also email the Fiscal project team at fiscal.cmo.fiscal.ca.gov. We're going to close out our session today on the note that this will be our last town hall related to some of the deposits. At this time, We're going to continue to update the job aid Fiscal 391 for SCO-related workflow issues and items, and Fiscal 389 for any deposit slips. So that's something that USARA will be able to maintain long-term. For these town halls and these workshops, we do have another upcoming milestone release in December, and so this is going to affect some of your GL journals. Much like you have AR certification for your AR payments, you'll get those in your GL journals as well as your AP vouchers. You should be receiving some more information. We have another infographic for you for this upcoming December release. You'll see sometime this week or next, and then we will begin our next stage of making sure that you're all aware of the changes coming up in December. And so people on this call may not be related to those functionalities. We know a lot of people on the call today were related to some of the AR functionality, but as we move on to some updates to AP and GL, I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. We'll be having our workshop. You'll be getting news about when we'll be having our workshop soon. And I wanted to say thank you for everybody for attending. So thank you, Lynette, Yasar, Kathy, and then thanks again to Svetlana for assisting with questions.